Ever heard of a fire truck salesman and a fire engine driver lost in a one-way town? No? Well, brace yourselves. Meet Jim, a fire truck salesman with a cocky attitude and a knack for taking shortcuts. Now, meet Tim, a seasoned fire engine driver with a wealth of experience under his belt. Together, they embarked on a journey to pick up a demo 100-foot platform fire ladder truck from a local port. Sounds simple, right? Well, not quite. Their destination was an island town, accessible only by a single winding road. Picture this, a sprawling maze of one-way streets, each more confusing than the last. To add to their woes, the fire station they were supposed to find was as elusive as a needle in a haystack. The duo drove around aimlessly, their frustration growing with each passing minute. In the midst of their confusion, they encountered a local. This young man had clearly seen better days. His clothes were worn out, his face lined with the story of a hard life. But he knew his town like the back of his hand. So, with a wave of his gnarled finger and a few muttered directions, he pointed Jim and Tim towards the elusive fire station. Jim and Tim, relieved and grateful, followed the man's directions. The fire station materialized before them, a beacon amidst the confusion. But their journey was far from over. Jim, ever the lazy one, noted the nearby ferry landing. He thought it would be the perfect shortcut off the island instead of taking the long and winding road back to the mainland. Tim, however, was skeptical. The fire engine was heavy, and he wasn't sure if the ferry could handle the weight. But Jim, confident and dismissive, brushed off Tim's concerns. He was certain the ferry operators would know best. Finally, they found the fire station, but now they had to figure out how to get off this island. The adventure was just starting. Now, Jim, being the lazy bones he is, spotted a ferry landing not far from the fire station. This could be their ticket out of here, he thought. You see, Jim was a man who loved shortcuts. He was the kind of guy who'd rather climb a wall than walk around it. So when he saw the ferry, he saw an opportunity to avoid the long, winding road back to the mainland. It was a shortcut, a lazy man's dream, but there was a catch. The fire truck they were driving wasn't exactly a featherweight. It was a 100-foot platform fire ladder truck, a beast that could make the ground shake with its weight. Tim, the seasoned fire truck operator, was the first to voice his concern. "Jim," he said, "this isn't a bicycle we're talking about. This monster could be too heavy for the ferry." But Jim, ever the cocky know-it-all, brushed off Tim's concerns. He had faith in the ferry operators. They were professionals, weren't they? They'd know if the ferry could handle the weight of their fire truck. Besides, it was only a short journey across Tortoise Bay. What could possibly go wrong? As they approached the ferry landing, the operator walked up to them and asked, "How much she weigh?" Jim, not bothering to double-check, glanced at the labels on the dash and shouted back, 36,000. The operator didn't bat an eyelid. He simply said, "I'll throw the chains out on the other side." And so, Jim, the overconfident salesman, decided to take the risk. Little did he know what was waiting for him. The ferry ride across Tortoise Bay was about to become one of the most memorable experiences of his life. But for now, he was just happy to be avoiding the long drive. After all, who needs roads when you've got a ferry? So, there they were, at the base of Tortoise Bay, ready to board the ferry with their massive fire ladder truck. The salty air hung heavy, and the ferry, bobbing gently at the dock, seemed to echo their own apprehension. As they rolled onto the ferry, the deck beneath them groaned and creaked under the weight of the behemoth. The ferry listed dramatically, tipping like a seesaw with a heavyweight on one end. Imagine the scene. The ferry tilting precariously to one side, and the passengers from the other vehicles, their eyes wide with terror. They clambered out of their cars, scrambling for the rails, their shouts swallowed by the shrieking seagulls and the churning surf. But our intrepid duo, Jim and Tim, remained nonplussed, their gazes fixed on the horizon, the mainland, and their shortcut home. Then, with a lurch that made everyone's stomachs drop, the ferry began its quarter-mile journey across the choppy waters of Tortoise Bay. The wind whipped around them, tugging at their clothes, carrying the tang of the sea and the faint scent of burning rubber. Every wave, every bob of the ferry was a reminder of the weight they were carrying, of the risk they had taken. The journey, though short, felt like an eternity. Every creak of the ferry, every shift of the fire truck on the deck sent a ripple of tension through the crowd. But Jim and Tim, they stayed cool. They had faith in their fire truck, in their shortcut, in their decision. And then finally, the mainland came into view. The ramp went down, the ferry operators gesturing urgently for the vehicles to stay put as Jim guided the fire truck off the ferry. They had made it. They had crossed Tortoise Bay, shortcut and all. The relief was palpable, a collective sigh echoing across the deck. They made it across, but the real surprise was still waiting for them. As they disembarked from the ferry, Jim glanced at the dashboard of the fire truck, and boy was he in for a shock. His eyes widened as he realized his colossal mistake. The weight he had confidently relayed to the ferry operator was drastically underestimated. He had unwittingly read kilograms instead of pounds. His heart skipped a beat as he realized the fire truck wasn't 36,000 pounds, but a staggering 80,400 pounds. This was a blunder of epic proportions. Jim, the cocky know-it-all salesman, had just put the ferry, its passengers, and even the fire truck in potential danger, all because he didn't pay attention to the units of measurement. The realization hit him like a ton of bricks, or more fittingly, like 80,400 pounds of fire truck. His face turned a shade of red that could rival the truck's vibrant hue. And that, folks, is why you should always check your units of measurement, especially when you're driving a fire truck onto a ferry.